reminder of our upcoming Gita Jayanti celebration. That's December 3rd, Saturday, 5 p.m. I'll be reading the entire Bhagavad Gita and celebrating the birthday of the Bhagavad Gita, the day that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. That's Saturday, December 3rd, 5 p.m. I'm also planning a first night program. Not quite sure what it will be. I'm actually very sure what it will be, but I'm not quite sure how to share the change of the year with all of you live. But we'll see. There'll be more information on that in the coming weeks. But let's chant our morning japa. If you've never chanted japa before, I'm using beads. If you don't have beads, that's not a problem. Just recite the mantra along with me. Hearing, listening carefully is the power of the sound vibration to purify, to settle, to help transform the quality of our consciousness. It'll take about 10 to 12 minutes. Remember to recite in unison with me. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Leda Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, so let's go over. This week we've been reading and studying Arjuna's statement that the mind is very difficult to control. And Krishna's response is, yes, you're absolutely correct. The mind is very difficult to control. Most of the beginning of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita was Krishna and Arjuna's discussion about the mind. And Krishna was saying that the mind is the friend, is the greatest friend of the conditioned soul, you and I, the living entity, as well as the greatest enemy of the individual. And Krishna was saying that the mind, when it's controlled, it's the greatest friend and anything can be achieved. When the mind is uncontrolled, then destruction of the individual and the persons around that individual occur. Krishna also goes on to say that the mind is actually literally the cause of liberation and also the cause of its greatest distresses and conditioning. So the verse, text number 35. Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. And the last few days, we've been going over this word detachment. Vairagya is the Sanskrit. And just a quick recap. Do not attempt to practice Vairagya. You can't. Vairagya is the result of abhyasa. The first word Krishna used was abhyasa, by suitable practice, and then by Vairagya. The result of abhyasa, of a spiritual process, of spiritual practice, spiritual discipline. 3 or 4 days ago, we talked about what abhyasa is, the 3 aspects of abhyasa. We won't go over that. That was a few videos ago. If you attempt to practice Vairagya, you'll end up practicing what's called detachment. Attachment, detachment. Attachment, aversion. When you practice detachment, your personal well-being and the well-being of others, you do not practice detachment. Do not attempt to practice Vairagya. Engage in a spiritual practice, abhyasa. Vairagya is the result. Now the question is, what kind of practices, what kind of abhyasa leads to Vairagya? 2 things. Number 1, that's the reason why a guru is essential. A spiritual teacher, spiritual mentor, call it what you like. A spiritual mentor or spiritual guru is absolutely essential. You cannot achieve anything in life without being coached, without being mentored, without being trained, especially in a field about which you know nothing. We do not know anything about Vairagya. We are not born into this world understanding how to live a life of Vairagya. We have to develop that capacity to live on the level of Vairagya, practicing detachment and destroying ourselves and our relationships. So a guru, a mentor, a coach is essential in helping an individual develop their abhyasa, their spiritual practice, their sadhana, and help them tweak it as they progress spiritually. So guru is essential. Now, on the other hand, I'd like to leave everyone with a universal principle, a universal practice. And this universal principle, there are other universal principles, meditation, japa, but it has to be done with intention. Not every single sadhana practice is suitable for every single person. This one practice that is generally, can be universally beneficial for all of us is the Bhakti Lakshana of Vandana. Vandana, again, English falling far short of the ability to describe accurately and fully a Sanskrit principle or concept, Vedic concept. Vandana means prayer. That's the Sanskrit or the English equivalent. Much more than prayer, much more than prayer. But included in Vandanam is this idea, we talked about it earlier last week, gratitude, a practice of gratitude, being appreciative of one's present circumstances, ability, relationship, whatever it may be, being appreciative of one's present reality is an aspect of Vandana. Vandana is another Bhakti Lakshana. The reason why the practice of gratitude is so powerful unleashes a particular energy. This energy in the Vedic teachings is called Sattva Guna. There are 3 basic energies of material reality: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Raja is the I don't want to go so much into these energies because we can spend a week on each one of them. The Rajas principle or energy is one that is highly creative, one that is highly conducive to destructive. And that's not always a bad thing, right? When you take something apart, or with nature, for example, when there's a forest fire, we know it can really regenerate life in that space where the forest fire has taken place. So destruction is not necessarily always a bad thing. It can give way for the new. But that's the principle of tamas. Sattva guna is the principle or the energy that is preservative in nature. It sustains, it's nourishing, it maintains. And that is also, I mean, all of these energies run both good and bad. It depends how they are utilized. But the sattva principle is activated when we practice gratitude. Gratitude puts us in a space where the sattva guna becomes highly empowered. And the sattva guna energy puts us in a space where we make the best a sense of well-being and fulfillment all comes from the sattva guna energy. And that's what gratitude does. It lifts us, puts us in that sattva energy. So a practice of gratitude is something that is universal, that should be added to our abhyasa, to our sadhana. So gratitude, vandana, this principle of vandana, is something that can be used in our spiritual practices. Get a spiritual mentor. Find a guru that is able to help you develop an abhyasa, a sadhana practice that is suitable for you and can help you tweak it, can help you, because you're going to encounter obstacles, challenges in your sadhana practice, in your abhyasa. So you're going to need a guru to help you navigate practices. A few years ago, quick story and then we'll end. A few years ago, I was inspired by some friends to do a japa vrat, a meditation challenge. It was to chant 64 rounds a day for the month of Kartik. The month of Kartik is this is the month of Kartik. I think we're just coming to the end of the month of Kartik. It's a very powerful month energetically for spiritual practices, for abhyasa. So for that particular month, I had determined that I would, myself and a few other friends around the world, we decided to have this challenge of chanting 64 rounds. About 7 to 8 hours to do this. A wonderful experience. I advise all of you to do it at least once in your lifetime. You'll get incredible amounts of realizations. One of the realizations I got, and I was very, very lucky because at the time I had a spiritual mentor to help me through this. And I work full time. So to have a full-time job, I also have my youngest daughter to care for. I'm married as well. So there's a lot of obligations on top of which I have this 8-hour a day challenge I'm trying to complete. And immediate day one, enormous challenges. Day 3, all kinds of challenges on every level, professional, personal, marital. I mean, not terrible marital problems, but there was time issues, time crunches. Things had to be taken care of, all kinds of obligations. And I was struggling. Stop it. Should I not do it? And the realization, we had a wonderful discussion, and the realization that came from it was to really understand what's the purpose of such a challenge, what's the purpose of such an abhyasa practice. So the next day I went into, this is day 4 or 5 or something like that. So I went into my japa that day thinking, all right, well, I'm chanting Krishna, what's the purpose of this? And an issue came up where my wife needed some help with something. And I was irritated. I'm doing my japa now. I don't have time to do this. And that's when the realization hit, thanks to the conversation I had with my spiritual guru, my spiritual mentor. And the realization hit. Stop the japa, stop this vrat, put it down and engage with my wife. The purpose of the chanting, the purpose of a higher level of consciousness is to experience, to be in love. That was the purpose. So here I am chanting, trying to raise my consciousness so that I can live and be a better loving husband. And when the opportunity arises for me to be that engaged, loving husband, I'm shutting the door on it. The realization was such a slap across the face. And in hindsight, it was so obvious. But of course, in the thick of things, we don't always see the forest for the trees. It was one of the greatest realizations of that month. Not to pick up and start shut at everything else. The greatest realization was to put down my japa, to stop my japa, and to engage in the world with the family in love, grace, and compassion. Without having had that conversation with my spiritual mentor, I would not have had that realization. Get a spiritual mentor. Find a guru who can help in your spiritual development throughout life. So we'll end there. And just a reminder, every day, 7:30, we have our morning sadhana. So I'm doing whatever sadhana it is that you do, and then chanting a round of japa with me and going over the verse of the week. The verse for next week, I believe, is chapter 6, text 41. That's the verse we'll be reviewing all of next week. Have a great day, and let's go and engage with love with our friends and family. Hari Hari.